Welcome back to Ambar Actually, and I'm here with my co-host Steven.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Feliz Viernes. How do you say in Creole or
Um,
French?
oh wow, putting me on the spot. I'm trying to put me on the spot, and I forgot every Creole word in the Damn, how do you say Friday again? I'm drawing a
Damn,
blank.
bro.
I'm drawing a blank.
Do better, do better.
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, I
it's
don't
it's
speak
fine.
as much Creole as I used to, being out of the house for like almost 20 years now. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's on my list of things to do as far as like a goal of mine this year. I want to learn how to speak Creole.
why Creole?
Because I want to visit Haiti one day. Like, I want to explore the full island of Hispaniola. And yeah, get in tune with my roots. I'm Dominican, as I've mentioned before, but we do share an island, and it's
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful island that I would love to, embrace.
Okay, okay. I respect that. I have no plans on brushing up my Creole, so hate to break it to y'all.
Oh,
Hate to
man.
break it to y'all.
Today's episode, we are going to be talking about the modern life and social static. I'm busy. Um, the I'm busy Olympics, because why does everyone sound like booked, stressed, slightly exhausted, and or like it's a personality trait? Like if they're not busy, then they don't know how to not be busy, I guess. How do you feel about that?
I mean, not to jump ahead, but I think the clear answer is capitalism. Think we're all hamsters on a wheel, and I think the last 6 to 8, possibly 10 plus years, that's like intensified even more. A lot of people have families, kids to take care of. Then you add in the social media component, and so people are unfortunately constantly comparing themselves. So it's like, if I'm not living life like this other person, then I gotta be on my grind, and so I don't have time to participate in the other things or to just even have the availability. And I think there's also a portion of like people's bandwidth has lessened as well. And that could also be a social media thing because we're constantly being fed information. But I think a lot of people are starting to realize, like, I don't really want to just be this empty space for you to like trauma dump. Like,
Mm.
if you're not really contacting me or trying to connect with me in an honest way, then I'm busy. I don't got time. So could be a bunch of things. But yeah, that was the first thing that came to mind.
Okay, yeah. Being busy is the new I'm important. Rest feels illegal unless you've earned it through burnout. And everybody's posting soft life but screaming suffering behind the scenes. Just some bullet points here that I have written down. And I feel like going back to the burnout,
Hmm.
because I've experienced that, and I've had to learn how to like balance it all, especially when becoming a mother. Um I was never a napper beforehand. Like, I was the type of person who just like had her hours of sleep and did her day and
Hmm.
whatever, whatever. But now I value that so much, and like I value rest, and I make sure that I take the time to like really just unplug, whether it be from social media, work. As soon as I leave the office, I'm offline. Like, especially if I'm not in that tax bracket of being on the phone all the time, like being connected to that workspace, yeah, you won't be able to reach me. And I think that that's important as a person living in this modern age, because you don't want to be as accessible. They say that's poor spiritual hygiene, right? When everybody can have access to you, and uh, all these other elements, and it's like, um yeah, like, you have to kind of value that and, like, put yourself on a pedestal as far as maintaining that, uh, solitude in order
Mhm.
to kinda have a good balance. What do you think about that?
Um, I think yes, there is a level of you do need to protect yourself. There's only so much time that you have in a day, and it's dedicated to so many different things. So you do need to prioritize your, I guess, quote unquote, me time. When it comes to the idea of like burnout and allowing yourself to actually have that realization of like, I need time away. I think as you were speaking, it made me think of like, unfortunately, our more negative outlook on, burnout and how we prioritize keeping our stress levels low come from, our parents, especially if you're talking about um, Caribbean immigrants. When they came home, they was working on the house. They were cleaning on the house. As a child, they wake you up first thing in the morning. What you got to sleep for? You only go to school. Like they don't give you that level of autonomy, kind of, which that's a whole nother episode itself of like the idea of children not actually being viewed as human beings. They're kind of viewed differently. Um, so it kind of starts from there. So you get this sort of sense of like, if I'm not doing something, if I'm not being productive, then there's this, fight or flight sort of response. And, then you have other examples of like, if you're not working on something, then somebody else is achieving your dreams and all these other sort of bullshit sort of metaphors or ideologies. But I personally would like to say, or at least the way I view things, is more from the standpoint of like our ancestors, whether you are directly, if we are African American, you have direct roots to, people who were slave or whatever the case may be, because slaves came from everywhere. But
Right.
if I propose it from the standpoint of like, hey, your ancestors sacrificed for a better life for every generation after that. So it's like, why do you need to have this fight or flight response? Granted,
Mm,
that's maybe foolish to say given the current state of the world, but we see our parents, we see our grandparents. Some people have been fortunate enough to see their great grandparents. Like, these are people who went through a lot. And when you have these conversations with them, they just want to relax. They just want to take it easy. And they don't necessarily have the ability to do so at their latter stages because they may not have the resources or, their health has already deteriorated. So it's like, why not do all of those things earlier in life? Like implement it in some sort of way. So, um, yeah, it's tough. It's tough because a lot of people have a lot of responsibilities. And then, like I said, you have to recognize that you deserve peace and you deserve your ability to decompress first, but it's difficult. And then the last thing I'll mention is you made the point of like, there's people who, because of their status professionally, they don't have that opportunity. And I challenge that. Not saying I challenge you for making that sentiment. I challenge the idea that we as a society have deemed that as normal. So it's like, because you have this role or because you have this title, you don't have a 9 to 5. You essentially have a 8 to 8 or 7 to 7. Like you have these extended hours. And which is funny because I know this will come out a few months after, but the Pit TV show was just ended not too long ago. One of the episodes really, well, not even one of the episodes. They really talk about like the idea of, doctors and being burned out and like um there is a very high percentage of doctors and nurses that report burnout because they're working crazy hours because a lot of these places are understaffed, don't have the proper resources. So it's like these are people who are now trying to save lives in some cases, or provide the best medical assistance to people, and you may catch them on a bad day, or they may overlook something, or you might get prescribed the wrong um, drug or medicine because
Right.
they're burnt out, they're not paying attention, or whatever the case may be. So, long story short, it's a very convoluted situation, and I think we all need to develop a healthier outlook on it. And then
Mhm.
also, like, from a, I don't want to say corporate, but from like a working world standpoint, there also needs to be an adjustment as well, because it's like, these people who work at these jobs and they have these crazy hours, and it's like, the fuck are you really doing? Like, even myself, and I know I brought this up on the show before, like me quitting in December, all I was doing was working in marketing. There was no reason for me to ever have a situation where I was working up until 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, come on. Like, that's insane. Absolutely insane. So
Right.
things got to get better.
Yeah, the expectations that they have on us, especially in this generation of AI, right? So they kind of want us to compete with these computers almost. And it's like I get that it can be useful, and at the same time a lot of I've been observing that um as I'm still in the workforce, looking and seeing how they wanna kind of include AI and kind of have us humans train it. It kinda has I have a hate and love relationship with it because it's like,
Hmm.
in the same breath it is helping me, my day to day, like, it's keeping me, more organized, or, like, making sure I'm, like, fact checking, the emails or whatever, and then in the other hand, I'm like, "Oh, well, if this technology can pick up all of this data and know kind of, like, how my workflow is and, like, picks up on it, I can be out of a job as well." So it is kind of, like, scary.
It is scary, and I'm not someone who does a lot of research on this stuff. I'll just randomly come across content per se,
Mhm,
but it's scary. It's scary up front because this is the hot word. This is the key word. This is what all these companies are using, especially with all the layoffs that we've been seeing. A lot of times they talk about, the technological advancements that they're making, or the sort of restructuring of the org that they're doing to essentially use AI to like place for certain roles, specifically when you talk about like middle management roles. That being said, one is not 100% accurate. So you still need a human being to actually overlook the work. Two, um, it still needs the human element. Like, yes, you could tell it very specific things to do, but there is a certain nuance depending on what industry that you're in, that you need a human to provide certain context to, implement that into the system. So it's counterproductive in that sort of way. And then also something that I've been seeing is that for some of these companies that have been, doing these layoffs and trying to rely on AI, they've now come to realize like it actually isn't efficient, and that however long this sort of like AI boom is going to be, it's very quickly soon going to be like an AI bust, and like the AI bubble will burst, and like these companies will have to start hiring people back because it won't make sense for them anymore, to just rely on this sort of like technology, because it's just not efficient enough to replace the kind of work that needs to get done. So I don't know. I think it's going to be, some sort of like happy medium to a certain extent, but at the end of
mm,
the day, like, I don't know how effective it's going to be, especially, you know, the younger generation. I don't know what their relationship is with AI. And so if they're the ones that become much more reluctant to it, like these companies will eventually have to bend to them as well, because a lot of things are targeted to younger audiences. So if they don't
mhm.
love it, then, you know, got to catch up with the program. So
Right.
I don't know. It's a very dicey sort of situation.
Yes. I also want to talk about the difference between real responsibilities and performative busyness. So, to kind of define, obviously, real responsibilities are, tasks that are prioritized, whether it be work, home, dynamics. There's responsibility. I wouldn't say tasks when it comes to relationships, but there are certain things that you have to kind of meet in order for you to, I guess, be what's the word? Strong in that
Mm,
category or whatever. Performative busyness would be like, let's say, for example, the work example. You're in the office 8 hours, but technically you can do the work in less time, right? So they
mhm.
want us in these spaces, and we've seen how they've taken away the work from home. Most companies are hybrid now; they're not fully remote anymore. But it's like, why are we performing busyness, knowing that these things can be done at home or done in a lesser, time frame. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I could do a whole podcast series about my anger when it comes to the work model and how it still exists today. Like, so many things about our country in general, things have evolved. We've evolved socially, you know, and there's so many options you could come up with the ideas of, sexual orientation and so many other different things that we've evolved in. But then there's just so many other things that are still like painfully still present. So it's like, yes, the idea of what you just said of like, you want someone to work 9 to 5, like the idea of 9 to 5 started when we were working in assembly lines. Like, though that was the reason for a 9 to 5. And now, um, that that's no longer, now that assembly line jobs aren't necessarily a priority, like things should adjust. And so, uh, yeah, I should be able to only spend 4 hours doing whatever it is I need to do. But they would never align with that because then they'll immediately say, well, if you're only doing work for this amount of time frame, then we're only going to pay you for this amount of time frame, even though technically everybody should be paying you according to um, your cost of living based off of where you live. But that's another question for another day. Um,
Mhm,
and then, the idea of, having people come into an office is definitely, and I'll say it bluntly, I don't care, is definitely just, another form of white oppression and the power struggle and power dynamics between the employers and the people at the top in comparison to the people underneath of them. You could also um, look at it from an age sort of standpoint. A lot of these baby boomers grew up a certain way, and so they want everybody else to go through certain experiences in the same manner that they did, even though that's not how the shit works. Like every generation is supposed to be doing things so that way it's hopefully not only easier for that current generation, but the generation after them. But whether you're talking about white people, whether you're talking about even people of color, if they are in a certain age group, they feel as though because they went through the mud, you have to go through the mud as well. Which doesn't make sense because they don't leave their positions of power. So what are you going through the mud for? You're just being idle until you have to jump to another company to possibly get that position. So yeah, it's all weird, and I can't remember the first part you mentioned. Um, but yeah, it's just all very unfortunate because there needs to be a balance between, I mean, that's one of the key words from the last 15, 20 years is like work-life balance. People should be able to work, depending on what you do, like people should be able to work anywhere. And it's mind-boggling because we literally are only 6 years removed from the pandemic. A lot of these businesses were still flourishing. Granted, a lot of them did
yeah,
like shut down, but these are more like brick and mortar type of places. A lot of businesses were still flourishing. A lot of industries were still flourishing with everybody working from home. So what is different now?
right.
What is different now? Like I was working on teams where I had people in Mexico, I had people in Florida. I had people in Canada. Like I was on calls with people in other countries. And then what makes it worse with the whole return to work thing is depending on a lot of the senior leadership or other people, those people get to work from home. So then you
Right.
come into the office just to be on a Zoom call that you could have just took from home. So it's like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing
Mm.
this? So
Do you think it's worse in fast-paced areas like the East Coast, or is that, just across the board? Like, because I feel like up here, we kinda have that mentality where, we're always on the go, we don't even stop to say, "Hello, how you doing?" Or if we do, it's, like, quick, and then it's like, you don't really give a fuck about who you just asked, "How you doing?" Because it's like it's that's also like a greeting at this point. When you go down south, people are more slower, they're, like, more, hospitable and all of that. So, do you think it's a cultural thing?
yeah, I think there is some level to like the cultural aspect of it, of like, if you grow up in the Northeast, specifically like the tri-state area, like there's a certain way of life that we're just sort of used to. So it's not even necessarily performative busy up here because we literally are that busy. I remember very, very long time ago, I read an article about one of the 9 reasons that dating in New York is difficult. And one of the reasons was that people are always chasing something, chasing a better job, chasing a better apartment, chasing a better car, chasing more money, and in some instances, chasing a better partner. So that sort of like mentality is just how we operate in this area in general. So I don't know if and then you take it to another level of like, the social like aspect of it, like especially if you're talking about New York, a lot of these other places, like these are like smaller, more rural areas. And yes, they may have cities, but it's not as robust as, New York, New Jersey was back in its like heyday. So it's like there was also this level of like, I need to be busy because people in my proximity are achieving certain things. So it's like, I know one of the common things they used to say is like, millionaires take the train as well. Like, you don't have any idea who you could be rubbing shoulders with because, and you see it all the time. Like, you'll see like high profile actors are just taking the train in New York City. So when you kind of live in that sort of environment, you kind of get this sense of like, oh, I need to always be on my shit because everybody else is always on their shit. So
Mm.
it may not necessarily be as performative, but it definitely plays a factor into it. And just even when you said the phrase fast paced, like I almost like cringe because like at this point, a lot of these companies that's just in their job descriptions. Like we work this is a fast paced environment. Things are
Right.
constantly changing. Things are constantly evolving. And it's like, yes, that could be the case, but also it goes back to my earlier rant. It don't have to be this way. Like, as someone who just left marketing, there's no reason for any of this shit to be fast paced. Like, well, what are we talking about? Like, we are
Right.
grown
Who
adults.
needs it fast?
Get get it, gather together, have these proper discussions, and then get back to us. It shouldn't be piecemeal the way it's been. So a lot of it can be avoided, but also I think a lot of it is like so ingrained in not only, regional culture, but also the idea of, how businesses should operate, which is uh really flawed. And so that kind of, becomes a trickle down effect to people as well, because we all want jobs. So we all are experiencing it.
Right. Or how about the quiet fear of, if I slow down, am I falling behind? Some people have that like kind of guilt trip. It's like, oh well, if I disconnect from social media, will I still have my followers? Will if I don't post as much, are they still gonna engage? We always see that thing where it's like, oh, I've actually experienced it where like on TikTok, I won't post like for 2 days straight, and then like on the 3rd day, I'll post something and it'll have like 5 views versus, the normal 100 spam views that I would normally get. And it's like, that's interesting,
Well,
to think
yeah, but
about.
that's also a flawed sort of system because obviously these programs are designed for interaction. They're not going to benefit from somebody sparingly using their platform. They're going to benefit if someone is constantly on there, which creates like, the sort of addiction thing that people have been trying to sue these companies for. So, yeah, I mean, it's in every aspect of like our livelihoods of this idea of like having to always be on and always be engaged because the one moment you don't, something's going to happen. But it's like something's always going to happen, whether you do something or not. So it's like, why not choose a side of what works best? Obviously, there's going to be moments where you have to like lock in and focus and like maybe you do work a little bit later or maybe you do focus on certain things. But then you also have to ask yourself, like, do I really want this? Like, is this something that really feeds me? I think a lot of times we get caught up in the idea of, and it probably comes from our parents too. Well, not even our parents, from the previous generation, because they kind of fed us lies unintentionally. But if you work hard, you reap the benefits. And go on LinkedIn right now. It's a lot of people who worked hard, and that shit has not yielded things in the manner that they wished that it would. Like people are getting 6 a.m. emails talking about their positions have been voided. Like if you telling me that's where my hard work is going, then why should I work hard? Like I may as well not work hard because at the end of the day, you're going to decide whatever my livelihood is going to be at this company. So, well, what's the point? And what's the point on top of the baby boomers, as I mentioned earlier, don't leave these positions. So I was working hard so that maybe I could get a look to possibly getting a promotion for a position that may never open, and then before I know it, I get laid off because of org restructure. So it's like, what did I really work hard for?
Right. And that kinda goes into the next we also spoke about this already of the our Caribbean parents, they would tell us to rest, but then they'll also judge us and say, "Well, why are you sitting around? You could be doing something, cleaning up the house." Excuse me. Rest is it normalized? It's low key judged, and between family time and hustle mentality, it kind of puts us in like a predicament where we kind of have these trauma responses, right? Like I was saying earlier, I didn't I wasn't accustomed to napping. So like I'm constantly looking for something to do. And then especially when I did become a mother, it's like, oh well, she's asleep, but I gotta wash the dishes or I gotta do laundry or I gotta clean the bathroom. And it's like I had to really train myself to kind of slow down and say, okay, well, this doesn't need to be done now. You need to prioritize ABC instead of, XYZ. And yeah, it's something that we're taught. Like I can definitely say that I was taught by my mother to be like really domesticated and like just overly perform in the households at least.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure everybody knows this, but if you don't, then I don't know where the fuck you've been living. But you spend your entire adulthood unlearning and healing from the trauma that your parents bestow upon you, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Which is funny because I was just talking to a homegirl about something similar to this not too long ago. And I have a video on my phone I'll send you after. But it was essentially saying like, I'm trying to remember specifically, but it was essentially saying that for some people, your body, your body's nervous system can react a certain way to your parents because of how they naturally treat you. And in my case, like my parents did the best that they could with what was given to them. That being said, now as, an adult, I've made plethora of choices for my own well-being or whatever, but they still kind of not respect the fact that I'm my own individual. And
Mm,
so in times where I want them to, have some level of emotional intelligence or be compassionate about certain things, they're just disconnected from that idea. And it's more so if you would have did this, if you would have listened to us, such and such would have happened. And it's like, that's not what I'm asking for.
Right.
That's not what I'm looking for. And so you can't expect to treat me a certain way as a child, then me as an adult to then create my own sort of understanding of what it is that I want out of my life. Not what you want for me, not what some girl wants for me, not what, whatever else may want for me, what I
Right.
want out of my life. You can't respect that, but then still expect me to like be the soft, caring sort of child to you. Like that's not how this shit works. Like I have autonomy. I have the ability to assess situations. And so if my body doesn't forget, my body does not forget, the things that were said, the things that were done. Like my nervous system reacts to unfortunately your existence, and not to, I don't wish death on my parents. Like that's crazy.
Of course
But
not.
it's like, um, yeah, your body's going to react to that. So if somebody's not showing up in the ways that you want them to, like, it's gonna be tough. And so there's a lot of things that our parents did, to try
Help
to put you in
us.
the right, yeah, try to put you in the right
Mhm.
position, but it eventually unintentionally became counterproductive because especially if we're talking about, Caribbean immigrants, I'm sure African American families face the same thing as well, but like for Caribbean immigrants specifically, they grew up, and baby boomers, they grew up in a generation of survival. Like they are doing everything because they come from nothing, and the little that they do have coming here means everything to them. And so
Hmm.
not going to work is life or death for them. And we don't grow up in those circumstances. Hopefully, most of us don't grow up in those circumstances. And so I have the ability to make decisions that are going to be different. So I might take a risk where you wouldn't have taken that risk. I don't have children so that I can take certain risks. You had kids, so you couldn't opt out of certain things. So it's like, don't look at me as a bad guy. Don't look at me as
Mhm.
I'm crazy because I denounce certain things, or, I
Right.
take a risk on my life. So, but a lot of those people in that age group, that generation, they don't see it in that way. And so you see that sort of like conflict between the generations when it comes to that.
Right. That actually is, a great segue into my rant of the week. Because I feel like especially for me previously, I've always had this, like, I don't a guilty conscience when it came to PTO, or like, requesting time for myself. So it's like, "Oh, is it necessary, or how am I gonna ask?" And then I had to really program myself and really step back for a little bit. And this is time that am I've worked for. Like I'm entitled to take these days. You know what I'm saying? And then coming from other toxic environments where it's like they kind of like silently reprimand you because you do wanna take a vacation, or you took a sick day, or whatever the case is. And it's like, there's this toxic culture in the workforce sometimes, not all the time, but that kind of has people thinking like, "Oh, well, if I take this day off, I'm gonna be, um, judged for it," or whatever the case is. Have you ever had those sentiments, or, like,
No,
experienced that?
no.
It's just me.
As they say on social media, PTO means prepare the others because
Right.
I ain't gonna be here. I've never felt guilty. I've always been someone who would actually, because I'm very fortunate. Well, I would say the way I've always looked at PTO is like, um, I live in the greatest region in the world. So it's kind of like, do I really need to take that much PTO when it's like New York City has so much to offer? Like I could go do shit all the time if I really wanted to. So in my more recent years, I would say the last 8 years or so, I would normally not take PTO unless there was really something I specifically wanted to do, and then save it all for like the winter. So like the last for like December, and be like off for like essentially the whole month. Um, so that's how I normally would operate. But I've never felt guilty about it because one, like you said, you earned it, and then two, fuck that job. Like
Right.
I did my part. I showed up. You gave me a check. This is the thing that I am owed. I don't even feel like you need to earn PTO. Like I should be owed paid time
Right.
off, period. So even jobs that you still do the whole like
The
you
accrual
accumulated,
system.
yeah, like you accumulated 3 hours. Like that's bullshit. Like it's 2026. Everybody is owed fucking PTO. Um, so yeah, I never felt guilty. And then again, I've had very specific experiences in my life where it's kind of like you have to prioritize yourself.
Mhm.
Um, I remember during the pandemic, there was at a tech company I used to work at, there was a woman who got hired. I didn't know her that well. She got hired in our department. She got hired, but she already had like a medical condition. I have no idea what the medical condition is or what the case may have been. And during the pandemic, unfortunately, she transitioned. And so
Mhm.
I remember when that news happened, and it was kind of like, well, the team she worked on, they had like a meeting for them. And then they let everybody else in the department know it's like, oh, there's a therapist on hand if you want to meet with one. But other than that, like business as usual. So it's like, why the fuck am I going to feel guilty about PTO when you could literally die and the ball still keeps rolling. So
Right.
never gonna feel guilty about it. Never gonna feel guilty about sick days. I don't wait to be sick to even take a sick day. If I don't wake up
Mm.
in the morning and I don't feel like doing this shit, I'm just not gonna work. So yeah, that's always how I
Yeah.
felt about it. And then even now, even more recently, you see the news of like certain companies are trying to reduce the sort of benefits that they give to people, like reducing the parental leave, reducing their
Mm.
PTO, and things of that nature. So it's like never feel guilty because them fuckers don't care. Um, so
Right.
yeah.
Yes, I've learned that the hard way in kind of embracing that because like you said, like you have to prioritize yourself. And I actually seen this TikTok too of this much older lady. She was basically like speaking, but it was really hard for her to speak because she was in the hospital due
Hmm.
to her not taking care of herself. So she developed some kind of a autoimmune disease where it kind of like prohibits her to walk. She talks like really slower now and like stutters. And she was basically pleading to the world, like, take care of yourself, take those days, and listen to your body because sometimes we'll just be on go, go, go mode. And then, God forbid, something happens to us where it affects us
Yeah.
physically.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a hard thing to say, but like I kind of mentioned this earlier, but like look directly in your family. These are people, a lot of these people are people who work 30, 40 years, and obviously they might be doing different types of work, especially if you're talking about baby boomers. Probably most of them have, doing jobs that are more manual labor versus us who
Mhm.
probably work in an office all day. But like, look at that. Like, I don't know a lot of people whose their parents were going on vacations all the time or on a consistent basis. Or even if it was like they're staying at home doing shit on the house. Like that's not the situation that you kind of want to be in. Like, yes, work is important. You got bills, you got stuff to take care of, but also like it's okay to do nothing. It's okay to go
Right.
away. It's okay to, whatever it may be. It don't even have to be anything grand. Like there's been times I've called out of work just to go to see a movie that I wanted to see. And like I'll go first thing in the morning. So it's just borderline myself in the movie theater and I just enjoy that experience on my own. Like it don't even have to be anything like super crazy. Like you
Right.
gotta prioritize yourself because all that working, all that mental and physical stress in your body is going to take a toll and take you out of here way sooner than you think. Like I think somebody was I just reconnected with somebody recently and they was asking me like how I've been and I was being a bit honest and forward about, how things have been and how I resigned from my job or whatever. And then they kind of was like happy that I took that step because they would, which I wasn't aware of, but it was like, more people at younger ages are starting to develop like heart attacks. And it's like, it's because of all that stress, because of all that pressure. And, you gotta choose a side. If it reaches a point where you feel like you gotta choose a side, then hopefully you choose a side that's more beneficial for yourself. And it's
Right.
tough because again, some people have kids, some people have to support family, like, you got to support yourself. Like it's not an easy decision, especially with the current administration, especially the way economy is set right now. So I hope people aren't forced to make those decisions like I did, but you know, you gotta be, you gotta ask yourself, like, is this really worth it? Because there's any day you could just not wake up and
Right.
it could just be from natural causes. And that natural cause could be just stress and how you are just taking everything around you. So, yeah.
Mhm. And we are in the month of April, but this episode is probably going to come out a little later in the year, and, it's Suicide Awareness Month, actually. So I
Mm,
do wanna put that out there as well because I've recently have heard from close friends that their loved ones have done that in the most recent times, and it's like, even that alone, like, people are willing to take their lives because of the stress, because of the things that they hold on inside of them, and it's I always, try to be as kind as possible, but you never know what someone's going through, and, I think it's
right.
important to kind of, take that into consideration
Yeah.
as well.
Like, I don't even have to be, because normally when we talk about people who decide to opt out, it's usually, very extreme sort of situations or whatever. It don't even really need to be that extreme. Like,
Mhm.
as someone who's been unemployed for like the last, what is this, going on 5 months, it's like, the level of frustration one experiences with you were talking about AI earlier, the fuckery that they're doing with AI when it comes to the job market. You know, you even have like fake companies putting up positions for you to like fill out, and it's essentially you training their AI models. Like it's actually not even a real job. It's like people have livelihoods, people have things and responsibilities, but if you're constantly being met with hurdles or whatever, I could admit, like I partially understand why someone's like, "Yo, I'm done with this. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to deal with this anymore." And then you have, the Trump of it all, and all the things that you see online from like the Trump
Yeah.
supporters, and like all these other things, and all these things like which is funny because on my other show we've been watching this old TV show, and one of the quotes from the episodes we covered, somebody was basically like, essentially, not to get, I don't want to be all drawn out, but essentially they were, the group of people were about to make a very difficult decision, and then one of the individuals was like, are you guys going to do this? Or, regardless of how the world is right now, like humanity is still a choice. Like we could still have some level of humanity and treat each other better at the end of the day. And I brought that quote up on the other show because it's like, if you look at the world right now, like we are not choosing humanity. Like
Mm-mm.
fighting for people to have livable wages has been a constant battle for like the past 20 plus years. Or, New York constantly, the MTA constantly raising their fares and installing things to avoid fare evaders. And it's like people can't afford to fucking ride the train. People can't afford a system that's not even reliable in the first place. We've already talked about all these layoffs. And this is not like, oh, we firing like 100, 200 people. You have these huge corporations. They're firing like 20,000, 30,000 people,
Yeah.
which just means more people now looking for jobs in the workforce. Or you have my situation where it's like, I'm even trying to find part-time jobs and I don't even get an interview for stuff that I'm obviously overqualified for. But it's like,
Mm.
maybe I want to just make a shift. Maybe I want to do something that's a bit more, black and white versus working in the
Mhm.
corporate world. Like all these different things. It's like the powers that be have taken other approaches. And it's like, I could see why someone who is looking at all these things on top of the family trauma that they're trying to heal from, on top of maybe they have marital issues, maybe they have, struggling with with being a parent for the first time, and, money issues and all these things. I could completely understand when somebody's like, yo, I'm done. Like I'm tapping out. Um,
Mm.
like it's out of control. Like the things that this is why I always be like half joking when I be like, yo,
Mhm.
humans is overrated because look at the kind of world that we created. Like
Right.
a lot of this shit is made up. Obviously, that's way above my level of education and understanding of the economy and how all this shit works. But it's like this is not no way for people to be living, yo. Like this is really not no way. Like I was this is the last thing I'll say. Like I saw a
Mhm.
job the other day. The requirement was a master's degree and the salary was 40K. In New York City, master's degree salary is 40K.
Wow. What in the world? I think they forgot a zero.
Listen, listen, man. Listen, man. For
Mm,
40
insanity.
40K can't pay for shit.
No.
Like
I think there needs to be Mhm. Go ahead.
I don't even live like the craziest lifestyle at all. I cannot survive on no 40K.
No.
So
You would definitely have to rely on some government assistance, and even that, they're taking that away from people. So what is America really doing when it comes to providing for their citizens? Because not only
nothing.
we don't have universal uh healthcare, right? We don't have a livable wage. And we're forced to live these lifestyles. People were sold this American dream, right? Go to school, buy a house, start a family. So you do all these things the correct way, a lot of people, right? Or the incorrect way, and now you have all these things, right? And the cost of living is tripled, and now it's like fuck, like how the fuck am I going to keep up with this? And, it's
Right.
just like,
Cause
"Oh, you
the
figure it out."
right. It's you figure it out, and that, the idea of the American dream was always a lie. Like it was just to manipulate poor people, regardless of your ethnic background. But it's just to manipulate poor people into thinking that they can achieve certain things. When in actuality, all the things that you just listed that are part of the American dream is all for the benefit of capitalism. You go to school. If you want to get a good job, you're probably going to have to go to a private school. If you come from a lower income family, that means you're probably having to pay for tuition out of pocket, which means you don't have that money, which means you have to take out a loan. So you're paying the loan plus you're paying interest on top of the loan.
Right.
Then when you think of the idea of, marriage and house and child, all of those things involve money, wedding, um, taxes, getting a house, property tax, a mortgage, all of those different things, interest rates, all in that, all the bills involved with that. Then bringing a child into this world, that's more money. You got to pay for school. You got to pay for their clothes and supplies and food or whatever the case may be. So it's all a lie. It's all just supporting labor and creating more ways that you have to be involved in this mixed economy in which the wage disparity is very huge between who are the high earners in comparison to the majority of people. So,
Mm. I actually seen this article too the other day of the company Oracle. Not sure if you're
mhm.
familiar with them, but they laid off 62,000 employees and they hired one uh person who was going to be paid, I believe it was like $450,000 her package with like a whole bunch of other things that she was gonna be provided, and it's like, "Damn, like, you just costed all these people to be laid off, and, like, you're just willingly, gonna take the position and, gonna provide them the services that you do, and with no remorse, obviously, because you agreed to these,
Well, I
conditions."
mean, one, she may not have known, so that's one. But then two, if you're getting paid 400K, she's probably borderline like a always on person. And it's like you have to ask yourself, is that a life you want to live? Do you want to be always on, even if you're making almost $500,000? Like personally, me, I don't need that. Like
Yeah. I don't know if
I
anybody
rather.
does. Who needs $450,000? Like,
Well, I think a lot of people would say that they need it, but I think people would deem that being always on is worth the salary. And I personally don't. We can't, you could buy anything, you can't buy time. So it's like, I'd rather have my time to myself, my time to indulge in things that I care about versus the money.
right,
Cause it's like, what is it really worth? Like, I used to work in a law firm and I used to work in the evening shift. So sometimes I would see like lawyers leave for the day and I'm still working there before my shift would be over. And before my shift would be over, sometimes I would see those lawyers come back into the office and I'm like, you just left and now you're back
right,
to do more work. And it's like, that's not a life I would ever want to live. Like, even if the money is great, it's like, is it? Like,
right.
yeah,
As
I
a
can't,
lawyer,
I
you
can't put a
deal with a
price
lot
on
of
time.
personalities and a lot of different scenarios where it's like having a business, you constantly it's either you're cutting the checks or the checks are being cut by you, and when you decide to cut the checks, it does come with a lot of responsibilities, and
Yeah,
I
I
personally,
just too much time.
yeah.
Yeah, that's just too much time. That's because you could fucking have a disease dead tomorrow. The fuck does
Yeah,
that mean? Steve
mhm,
Jobs was the head of Apple.
right.
I
He
mean,
passed away because
God,
of,
yeah, God,
cancer, right? God rest his soul.
yeah, I think it was cancer. Yeah, so all that money in the world don't mean shit.
Right, exactly, and then you're gone, and they have your replacement right after, so I think, like we were saying before, you shouldn't have to feel like rest is a reward, it should be a part of your routine, and you don't have to opt into the shenanigans of the American dream or wherever you're from dream of having this meaningful life means that you need to buy the $100,000 car or the $500,000 house or have the kids, a lot of people are opting out of these things, which I love that. The birth rate is going down every year. And I respect it, and
Shout out to y'all. Shout out to.
right.
I hope my message is being spread across the world because
Yeah, I
overrated,
mean,
overrated. Shout out to the
maybe
ones
in
that
our
already exist
lifetime,
too. Shout
right.
out to the ones that already exist too. But the rest of them, dub.
Maybe in our lifetime we will see the change that we so deeply seek, right? So,
Eh, not to be a pessimist, but I don't see it happening. Yeah, and it's just unfortunate because I will actually want it for myself too. But
yeah.
I think there'll be a minor change, but I think, and maybe this is just my very chaotic brain, but the kind of change that I want to see is very extreme, and so I don't imagining that happening anytime soon. So,
Mm,
with that being said, there's a lot of things that will still exist because the people behind them will still exist.
right. Well, if this hit you and you wanna share something, if it resonated with you in some way, let us know. Subscribe, like, share, and thank you for tuning in this episode.